actually, I'm delighted to welcome our next speaker to the stage as he moves forward. And just while he's doing that, and I will then introduce him, I just thought you might like to know the results of your poll earlier. 28% of you said that digital experience was going to have the greatest impact, 24% of you data management, 12% cloud, 35% advanced analytics and AI. So that clearly is expected to have the greatest impact. Ladies and gentlemen, he is the head of asset and wealth management at Expand Research, part of the BCG group. He's going to talk us through key findings and insights from the recently launched, it was launched today, the Engine report on innovation in investment management, the current technological landscape, how to transform and unlock opportunity. Who better to do that than the head of asset and wealth management at Expand Research, Richard Rouse. Richard, welcome. Over to you. It's all yours. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone, and thanks, Julia, for that introduction. No pressure there. And thank you to Gillian and the IA for inviting me back today. Gillian did say to me last week that we're going to be quite tight on time today, so I did a run-through last night, and it was actually about half an hour. So, but don't worry, because having turned the news on this morning, I went back through everything and removed all the offensive jokes, so 15 minutes should be about right. So, as Julia said, I'm going to tell you all about investment management innovation landscape in the next 15 minutes. And anything that isn't covered will be covered in our white paper that has been launched today, as Julia said. So, first off, let's get into the current situation in the investment management industry. So, we've got a clicker. There we go. So here we go. So, this is a story that most of you should be familiar with. In the investment management industry, we've seen over the years that AUM has continued to increase, but profits have continued to stagnate, remain pretty flat, which means all that hard work that you're all doing on cost management exercises is not really delivering that margin that you're all looking for. So what we can tell you is that the key obstacles and the key things that most firms are now looking at to try and counter this is dealing with the lack of scalability in operations, for one. So there's two aspects to that. One is, how do we service more AUM for a lower cost? But also, how do we service private assets? As all firms are looking for that margin and going into more private assets, the reality is private assets are more expensive to service. So how can we reduce that unit cost of servicing private assets? Secondly, as we go into that more complex environment, how do asset managers and investment managers manage that complex data landscape? And thirdly, rundown of legacy systems. You all know this, and for anyone who's ever heard me talk before, you'll know that I like to tell everyone that you can't drive a Ferrari on a dirt track, and therefore it's really important to run down, modernize your technology infrastructure, because the new capability that you all need will be driven by the new technologies. So, if we look at the innovation landscape, USA, still the largest number in terms of actual fintechs in the USA, but the biggest growth area at the moment, not just in terms of absolute numbers of fintechs, but in actual equity funding as well, is in Europe and the UK. And London is seeing the biggest part of that acceleration. So you're currently sitting in a hotbed of technology innovation. But the question on a lot of your lips is, will the industry adopt it? Well, if we look at the right-hand side here, we look at a chart that shows what's happening to technology budgets. We all know technology budgets are going up, and they're going up year on year. But if we look, interestingly, at what's happening to the spend on technology personnel, overall, that spend is going down in asset managers. Now, consider the context of the fact that wage inflation, so technology spend on people is going down. Spend on third parties is going up, which tells me that the asset management industry is now turning to strategic partners and its suppliers to achieve its goals. So Some of you will be thinking, not fast enough, and I'll come back to that in a moment and maybe shed some light on that. But if we look at the innovation priorities of the investment management industry, a large amount of this will focus on data. You can see in these lists there, technology investments on the left, operations investments on the right. There's a lot of requirement for data in there. But I think what's more interesting than me just going through those lists with you is looking at those numbers at the top. Change budgets are going up, but when we break that change budget down into 3 key areas, reg change, have to do it. Mandatory change, okay, how I'm defining mandatory change there is cyclical upgrades to your technology stack. And then the real value add change, that's where you're driving new capability and really driving that competitive advantage. Only about 20% of your change budget is going there. And what's more interesting and insightful than that is consider that 20% is an average. I can tell you that the range starts at 5% and goes all the way up to 60%. So what that's telling me is some firms are starting to get ahead of the pack, and some firms are falling behind. So the question is, which is your firm? Is it time to start looking for those strategic partnerships? Are some of those strategic partners in this room today? Well, I did say that I would also talk about why firms may not be experiencing huge uptake. Why is it not happening quicker? Now, if we look at this, I don't think it's a surprise for you to all know that a lot of the technology innovators are focusing a lot of their capability, a lot of their technology has been focused in the front office. So, sales, marketing, clients, distribution, trading and portfolio management. But if we look at the bottom and look at the previous slide, what firms are focusing on, we know that the investment managers are still much more focused in the more fundamental aspects of change in the middle and back office. So what that means for the innovators in this room is, for those of you who are operating in this space, you should be seeing an uptick and a greater uptake of your technology. If you're on the left-hand side there, in more of that front office stuff, I think it's hold your nerve time. And I say that because technology enablement is one of the core principal focuses for all investment managers today. And I spoke to a group of COOs last week who talked about this for the whole afternoon. How do we get greater technology enablement into the organization? The ones that will be most successful will be the ones that embed it into the culture of their organization. Front to back, top to bottom. And it has to be embedded in all decisions, all aspects of your organization. So, wrapping up, I've probably been quicker than I thought. Wrapping up, what needs to happen? Okay, so the first thing that needs to happen is investment managers need to understand the problem. What do your clients want? And how are you going to service it? Secondly, let's reframe innovation. Innovation is not a luxury. Now, I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but innovation is not a luxury. It's a really important part of that value-add change that we were just talking about. Build a progressive culture. What we're talking about there is embed the right skill sets throughout your organization. We need technology awareness and skills throughout the entire value chain. And also, procurement. Procurement is really important. We all know that. However, it can't be too hostile for these innovative companies that can really drive change and innovation and ultimately competitive advantage for you. Now, having worked with a large number of procurement departments in probably most of your firms, I can tell you personally that it is relatively hostile on a fairly regular basis, and that's something that needs to be considered. Also, we need to avoid risk adversity. We all know partnering with a small technology organization, a fintech, a startup, comes with some risk. But the reality is the total avoidance of risk is probably more harmful to your organization than the total avoidance, or it's more risky than too much risk. So I don't know if we have time for any questions, but more than happy to connect with anyone during any of the breakout sessions.
Great, thank you very much. We do have a question actually coming over Glisser, so thank you for the questions. And by the way, the slides are also available on Glisser as well. The question is, does the high percentage of tech investment in mandatory change align with the increase in the frequency and sophistication of cyber attacks on investment managers?
Well, that's
great question. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Do you want me to repeat it?
Yeah, I think you're going to need to.
Okay, so the question is, does the high percentage of tech investment in mandatory change align with the increase in the frequency and sophistication of cyber attacks on investment managers?
I'm not sure you can draw a direct line, but I think it's inevitable. You know, firms need to upgrade their systems. Firms are needing to evolve against the current threats. And aside from what we talked about today, operational risk is also a significant component of what firms are focusing on. So it's not just cyber. There's the traditional cyber, but it's also being exacerbated by the new working models we all have. So as we all know, most cyber attacks are normally human error, and with everyone working remotely, everybody with new technologies, that's a significant part that's playing in that. So I think loosely, yes, but it's difficult to draw a direct line.
There we go. Thank you for the question. Great question. And so on that note, well, let's leave it there. I just thank you again for participating with the poll earlier, which I hope set the scene. Richard, thank you for the slides. Thank you for the insights. And thank you for the input. I say do hang around for coffee. I'm sure you'll be grabbed by many with many questions. Richard Rouse, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, everyone.
Very good. So now we're going to pivot the conversation slightly. We're going to talk about wealth transfer. So for that, it gives me great pleasure to introduce to you the Managing Director of UK Wealth and Retail at iShares. He's a very active member of the Engine Advisory Panel. He has this weighty topic about next gen and the great wealth transfer. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Joe Parkin. Great, there you go, Joe.
Thank you very much.
Pleasure.
It is always wonderful to be introduced by Julia. Thank you. Hey guys, welcome. It's absolutely awesome to be here again. I think the thing I've missed most about the last couple of years and about the lack of kind of face-to-face has actually been those little conversations you have at events like this. I think it's so important for innovation within our sector. And so being back here in this great building is absolutely fantastic. For those of you who don't know me, I spend my time, I think, at the coalface of some of the most important mega trends that we're seeing in the wealth and asset management industry. I spend my time helping what we call the incumbents, as well as the new firms, building better asset and wealth management solutions, better technology solutions, better investment solutions for their end customers. So very much B2B. I think, over the last, I suppose, decade, what we've seen, I think, is an inflection point, but also a perfect storm brewing in our industry. This perfect storm created by several key trends colliding. A technology supernova. I think people always say to me, technology's always been around, it's always been there. But I think we've actually, over the last 20 years, experienced something pretty phenomenal in our industry. If you think about Moore's Law entering the second half, the cloud, the ability to share and access data. You think about the iPhone, obviously created up in Newcastle, or by someone from Newcastle, being launched in 2007. Technology has advanced like no other after the last 10 years. So I think it's different. Regulation, obviously absolutely critical. Customer expectations, the way we travel, the way we access music, the way we access movies, the way we live every single part of our life has changed since the introduction of the iPhone. And then sustainability. I think that if you'd have told me 5 years ago that a trend would come along and trump technology as a trend, I think I would have found it really hard to understand what that would be. Sustainability has emerged over the last 5 years and is now the most important topic. And we're going to talk a little bit about that today, I think, or we're going to talk a lot about that today. The thing I just wanted to kind of bring out and really focus on, because I think it's really important in terms of the title of what I'm going to talk about, is a mega trend around the shift in responsibility around retirement. And this shift in responsibility around retirement, I think, is often overlooked and ignored, because it's too long, it's too seismic, and it's very hard to build into a 3-year business plan. But this shift in responsibility around retirement, no question, will be probably the largest migration of assets we've seen in the developed and emerging world over the next 50 years. This is a shift from the corporate and the state onto the individual with regards to responsibility around their retirement. Now, why is that so important? That is so important from a savings and investment perspective, because suddenly we are pushing the responsibility into the hands of the individual. That is completely flipping on its head a lot of what we do in the asset and wealth management industry. That is pushing it directly to the individual. Does that individual understand that responsibility? Do they have the right tools, the technology in order to do it? I wanted to just kind of present this in a slightly different way, though, because actually I think that this shift in responsibility around retirement, while it's actually, what we like to call it within the industry, I don't think it properly defines how we should be thinking about it. Retirement in many cases is not a particularly interesting word. It doesn't excite the end consumer. So the way I like to think about it is in and around my belief there are 3 parts to people's health and happiness: physical, mental, and financial. I think, and to me it's as simple as that, and I think it brings to life exactly to the end consumer and to the millions of people out there in the UK exactly how we should be thinking about it. So if you think about physical health and how we've upgraded it over the last 10 years or even 15 years, around gym programs, around 5 a day, 7 a day, just people's physical health has improved. People's understanding of what they do. You know, if I pass my grandfather a glass of water, he's more likely to pour it into the plants than to actually drink it. But we now know there is a cohort of people that absolutely understand their physical health. Mental, I think, has also been important and very much appreciated over the last 2 years and ramped up over the last 2 years. Celebrity endorsed, kind of state and corporate sponsored, but our mental health has also increased. And then we get to our financial health, and I think not enough is being done in order to get us into that place. And so what I want to do is shift away from that responsibility around retirement to thinking about it in a way that makes sense to the average person on the street. Now, why do we want to do that? I think it's really important to do that because at the moment, we are not engaging, making it relevant, or making it every day, this whole thing around wealth and investment management, this whole thing around savings and investment. And I think that's really, really important because as we move away from covering thousands of customers into covering millions of customers, it's very hard to see how an advisor or someone is going to sit there and break down a lot of the explanations and a lot of things we're using as an industry to the end client. It's very, very hard to do that. So I think we need to get it to a place where we make it relevant, every day, and engaging. Now, that's all well and good, but how do you actually do that? So I've listed a couple of ideas, and then what I'll do is I'll break into some examples of what I see going on in the industry. So, part of the curriculum, I put education down here originally, and then I changed it because I hate the word education when it comes to savings and investment. Education is only possible when people want to be educated. So, you know, to say we're going to educate people around savings and investing, I think is very difficult unless you're talking about school children or university children or people that want to actually want to be educated. Most people in the UK, and the analogy I always use is the car analogy and the engine. So, you know, the most people 80% of people, 90% of people don't even know or have never seen the engine of their car, while it's still the most important part of their car. And so I think it's really, really important to make it part of the curriculum and to engage with it. I think there's some other ideas. I'll bring out a couple. I really like the idea of seamless. This is the idea you don't really know it's happening. This is the idea that you're rounding up your savings. I think that's got a really important part to play, certainly for getting people involved in investing. Personalizing it. So, when we think about some of the apps we use most in our lives, whether it's film or music, the content hasn't really changed. It's how we're presented with that content that really matters. It's kind of personalized. And then I think the other one is in and around making it every day. Now, a lot of people sit here and say, when I say make it every day, they sit here and say, you shouldn't be looking at your investments every day, you shouldn't be tinkering around with them. That's not what I mean. I mean thinking about your long-term financial health, or even your medium-term financial health, or even your short-term financial health every day. And the analogy, that's best used here is when we all became physically healthier, we understood more about it. We didn't all go out and become sports science majors, but what we do is we do little things every single day. That decision whether to go to the gym or not, or whether to have a sandwich or a salad, are super important. And I suppose it's the hygiene factors that sit around it that I mean make every day, which I think is really important about bringing it home. I just wanted to present a couple of things I see happening right now. So 4 things I see happening right now with respect to, like summarizing some of the things I just spoke about. The first one is kind of winning the next generation of investors. I think the next generation, so whether you call it the millennials or the young millennials or the people below that, I think they're thinking a lot more about this than people give them credit for. I think they're thinking about, they suddenly have a situation where they are leaving university in a huge amount of debt. House prices, it's almost impossible to get on the housing ladder, today. And so I think, attracting the next generation of investors, they want to be digitally engaged. They're used to buying things online. And I think as well, like when you think about your established business, I don't think that taking 3-year kind of bets into robo-advice was ever a viable opportunity. I think that you think about many of the great firms in the world, or many of the great ideas, took a long time to take off and seed. So you think about the next generation investors, they may be 25 to 35, but actually, when you start to realize that strategy in 5, 7, 10 years time, these guys are the guys that actually are going to start to have a significant amount of money. Is that? No. A significant amount of money. So I think the next generation of investors is a really, really interesting one, for people to focus on, and people are starting to do it. In that vein, I think a lot of the organizations that are covering those sort of next generation of investors are thinking about this personal financial hub. And I think this personal financial hub, if you'd have asked me, kind of a couple of years ago, how close do I think this is pre-COVID? I think I'd have found it really, really difficult to give you a timeline in and around how quickly I think they're going to pull this together. This is the idea that you went from a spreadsheet to 16 apps to kind of 2 or 3 apps that are just going to govern your financial life. So I think with open finance, with open banking, it's come a lot closer. And you think about kind of the ramping up off the back of COVID, so that perfect storm got massively accentuated and accelerated off the back of COVID. I think sometimes, we leapt forward 7 years in terms of the kind of digitalization of our industry in the course of 2020. And the ironic thing was that it actually pulled along the traditional firms a lot with it as well. So you think about the banks having to move to a situation where they were almost entirely digital, no branches. You think about wealth managers. And I think that was a really important thing that happened. So I'm a really big fan of the personal financial hub. I think that if you think about the new challenger banks and what they're thinking about doing, you think about putting payments, FX, investing all in one place. I think that'll be a really important thing that happens. Another one which is, I think, which we're starting to see a lot of, is in and around the idea of intergenerational wealth. We've done a lot of work around this initially for our wealth management clients. And one of the most interesting things that came out of this intergenerational wealth piece actually ended up being digital when we didn't expect it to be digital. So the intergenerational wealth piece was how do we actually have the conversation, start to engage with the customers that are going to inherit a huge wave of assets coming down from the baby boomers. And actually, the thing we discovered when we were doing our research is actually at the birth of a first child or grandchild is the best time to have this conversation. And so actually, the junior ISA, in a weird and wonderful way, was the vehicle you used to unlock the family, to unlock that intergenerational wealth transfer. Now, when you start to look around the wealth management industry, very, very few firms actually offer a junior ISA or actually offer something that they can, people can use for their grandchildren. But actually, in terms of the intergenerational wealth conversation, which I think the wealth managers are so interested in, actually having a digital proposition that allows saving for the grandchildren, the conversation to happen with the parents, was hugely, hugely important. The other thing which I think is really, really interesting, which a couple of firms are starting to realize, but I thought that other people would have reacted a bit quicker, and I think it's a major opportunity. So I don't know how many people are aware of the Child Trust Fund. So this was introduced 18 years ago, and basically allowed for government to match donations by, so kind of the precursor for the junior ISA, but kind of also funded by the government. So in the on the 1st of September 2020, the oldest children actually started to inherit their child trust fund and turn 18. You can access it when you're 16. You can't actually do anything with it till you're 18. The numbers are quite staggering. There are 55 accounts that mature every month. So that's 55,000 18-year-olds every month over the next 9 years, which is pretty significant. Huge number of assets sitting there, so amazing opportunity for people to capture, and about 1,500 sitting in each one. I actually saw a story the other day where a child trust fund was close to $1 million because of the way it had been invested within it. So this is just an amazing opportunity for our industry. We've got 55,000 18-year-olds every month, but you've also got 55,000 16-year-olds every month coming into, let's call it £1,500 in investable assets, and an opportunity to teach them in and around it. And so I think this is another opportunity where we're starting to see the fintechs play a little bit. We're starting to see people start to, okay, how can we use this as a social license to operate and to do it? And then what I wanted to do is just present one final thought and then a quote. The final thought is that in and around kind of what we do on a day-to-day basis and how we get up in the morning and what really motivates us. And I think we often get lost a little bit, in the conversation around investing or retirement or, fact sheets or kids. And actually, I think our industry needs to look a little bit further at how we take responsibility for financial inclusion and well-being, because I think it's in our hands. And so hopefully some of the ideas I presented today have kind of shown, by breaking it down into people's physical, mental, and financial health, it makes a huge amount of sense, and that purpose in and around financial inclusion and well-being, and focusing on that. And then I'm just going to leave you with a quote from Jim Collins. If you don't know Jim Collins, he's written some amazing books on business. But listen, technology cannot cause greatness; it can only accelerate it. Which I just think is really, really important, in terms of when you start to think about this whole technology journey and how we innovate within our organizations. So if you're not aware of Jim Collins, I advise you to read him. But thank you for listening. It's been a pleasure to be back in person, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do you want to take a question?
Yeah.
Do you want to take a question? Wonderful, great. So, and actually, we've been inundated with questions, so I'm just going to pick a couple of very quick ones, which would be, first of all, the reality that you're connecting with a generation that's used to instant gratification. What advice do you give about how do you kind of embed that into good behaviors? You were talking there about making it every day and making it simple. If there were kind of one big thing that would accelerate that, what might it be? So two things: seamless, that happens in the background. The surprise and delight of realizing you've save and invest £900, which is the average you do from
round up savings, so buy your copies. The second thing is I think that some firms have used gamification, which I think is a really interesting one, the social aspect of kind of saving. I mean, people are starting to talk about investments at dinner parties. You know, people are certainly talking about things like crypto and thematics and all that sort of stuff. So it is starting to happen, but I think making it seamless, you know, making it social, and then as well gamifying some of the things that happen.
Great, wonderful, thank you. And I do want to just ask one other, because we've had great questions come through. I suppose one of the questions here is, the essence of it is this move from states to corporates to individual. And can individuals really handle the truth about the reality of their investments and the investment landscape today?
No, because I don't think we've made her aware of those responsibilities. And I think we need to start to bring that to life, whether it's on the curriculum, whether it's using the child trust funds, which I think is just an amazing opportunity over the next 9 years. So, you know, from my perspective, I don't think she understands the responsibility or he understands the responsibility to save and invest. And that's something we need to make sure they do understand.
It all comes back to the education point you were making earlier. Joe Pocket from iShares BlackRock, thank you very much indeed for all your thoughts. That's great, thank you, cheers. Perfect. And we joke about this. Actually, no kidding, I was having a conversation with my nephew, who's just turned 14, about possibly opening an ETF yesterday. As you do. So anyway, listen, I'm really excited about this. This is one of the bits I enjoy the most, and what better way to see us into the coffee break, because I hope you're going to inundate them with questions, because we are now going to have a showcase. We're going to welcome up and in fact ask all of the presenters to make your way to the stage. While you're doing that, I will explain who on earth you are and why you are here. Because this, ladies and gentlemen, is the class of 2021, the virtual cohort. Yes, the lockdown did not stop them. It's the cohort 4 of the Engine Innovators program. And we have a video to show you before we hear some of their pitches. Wonderful. So how this is going to work is we are going to invite each of the representatives from their organizations to present who on earth they are, what they do, why they matter, and why you should be interested in what they're up to. In 2 minutes, we'd like a bit of pressure. 2 minutes, that's all you've got, is 2 minutes. Well, there's a clock, there's even a countdown clock, which we can see on the stage here, and I will give them a clue, give them a cue. So let me explain who is joining us today. From ASIN, it's Paul Norris. From Okwan, it's Chandidi Jain. From ESGI, Mark Davies. From Jacobi, Curtis Evans. And from Net Purpose, Samantha Duncan. So we're going to do this old school. We're going to go in alphabetical order. I'm going to invite Paul Norris from ASIN to come straight up to the stage, if you would. Paul, wonderful to have your company. There is a clock on the stage. I'm going to stand aside as your 2 minutes start now.
Hi, my name's Paul Norris from ASIN. ASIN are pioneering the global standard in operational risk management, and I'm here to tell you the what, the how, and the why. ASIN have built a dedicated operational risk platform that enables firms to manage operational risk like never before. Unlike risk and compliance software, ASIN is helping address the key challenge in operational risk, the data itself. Our analysis shows that on average, across sectors, 25% of controls are not managing risks. And ASIN is also removing the subjectivity that has plagued operational risk as we move it more in line with market and credit risk. How are we doing this? Well, ASIN have curated technical standards to define operational risk data. We have built new technology, NLP and AI capabilities to help us manage and connect data at scale. And peer networks, unique to ASIN, firms facing the same risks, connected through data. Why would we do this? Save costs. Take out what you don't need, do it quicker, do it more cheaply. Improve risk mitigation. Find the gaps, fix the risks, move to a more dynamic risk assessment. Finally, enhance and protect those reputations. Ultimately, the less capital put aside for operational risk means more for revenue-generating capabilities. In 2021, ACEN completed a proof of value with 5 asset management firms, all members of the Investment Association panel, with a combined AUM of 3 trillion. We're looking to move to the next stage and grow the asset management network. Thank you.
Wonderful. Paul, thank you very much indeed. Very impressive. Can I just say also, had 10 seconds left on the clock. Very, very slick. Wonderful. Listen, let's move on to our second of our power pitches. And it gives me great pleasure to welcome to the stage the founder and the CEO of Oquan. It's Chandini Jain. So, Chandini, where would you like to present from? Here or there? It's up to you. And we have 2 minutes on the clock. That starts now.
Thank you. I'm Chandini, and I'm the CEO of Oquan. Oquan is an intelligent data assistant to support qualitative research. So in the last few years, our clients said that the biggest challenge on their research desk was information overload. There was too much data in too many different sources. It's extremely hard to stay on top of manually, and something important almost always falls through the cracks. So Oquan helps clients discover a much bigger volume of unstructured insights from information that you're not able to read and analyze manually. We're able to take any topic, a country, a company, a sector, or an ESG topic, and link it to all of its dependencies. For a company, that would be its suppliers, its subsidiaries, oil fields, mines, raw materials that it uses, the location that it operates in. So when you research something on Oquan's platform, under the hood, we run extensive automated searches across all of these dependencies, across 1 million sources of online information that we're connected to in 150 different countries and in 22 different languages. Which means we're able to surface obscure information in local languages, or second-order information that doesn't even mention the topic directly. We have global coverage across large and mid-cap equities and in investment-grade and high-yield debt. And we have applications in investment research, for example, understanding the second-order impact on your portfolio from the Russia-Ukraine conflict, in ESG research, for example, understanding exposure to deforestation across a company's supply chain, or in risk and client servicing. Since we joined the Engine Accelerator, we've worked with panel members like Aviva Investors, UBS, Federated Hermes, and Hargreaves Lansdown to help them know first, act fast, and miss nothing. Thank you.
Wonderful. 15 seconds left on the clock, Chandini. Well done. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. I'm going to say, they've got these pitches down. So let's bring on our next presenter for a power pitch. It gives me great pleasure. He's a partner at ESGI. It's Mark Davis. Oh, hello. Hi. So, again, you have 2 minutes on the clock, and your time starts now.
Thank you. I'd like to talk to you about ESGI and our bold ambition to be the trusted data source for sustainable finance. All financial institutions are faced with multiple ESG reporting use cases and a growing number of use cases. It might be mandatory reporting for SFDR product disclosures. SDR is also on the horizon for many firms, but it also could be voluntary reporting, like your net zero aspirations. And this reporting requires information disclosure to your end consumers in a number of different ways. It could be a data feed to a regulator. It could be information that needs to go onto your website. It could be information that's required for your end investors. The way that we're tackling this challenge is through a complex rules engine. All of these regulations require a large amount of data, and that information to be married together and aggregated together in often complex ways. Sometimes that information will overlap with other regulations, and sometimes it will be new. So at the heart of our solution, we have a rules engine, which requires detailed investigation of each regulation, and then applying that information back into a data dictionary. Once we understand what's required, we can then reach out and collect information in one of 3 ways. Either direct collection, directly to the investees or potentially to your third-party suppliers through the platform. We also use our automation technology to collect publicly available data and digitize that and also collect the evidence behind it. And also, all of your organizations have a lot of this information already from your direct contact with your customers, but also potentially from your feeds from data providers, and we can load that information into the application as well. We'll then group that information into your portfolios and use that to drive the reporting.
We have 2 seconds left.
2 seconds left. Thank you very much for your time.
What a nice way to end it. Thank you very much indeed, Mark Davis. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. Thank you. So next up, welcome to the stage, the MD of EMEA. His name is Curtis Evans, and he's from a firm called Jacobi. Hi. Over to you. Exactly. Definitely.
Good morning, everyone.
So when you're ready, the time is on the clock. Starts now.
Thank you. Good morning. My name is Curtis. I'm from Jacobi. So Jacobi, we are a provider of multi-asset investment technology for leading investment groups around the world. What's unique about Jacobi is it is used to scale portfolio design, management, and monitoring processes. There's a lot of investment technology in the market. Actually, not that much is devoted solely to the multi-asset landscape and challenge there. What's particularly unique as well is the fact that the technology is extensible and customizable. Groups will integrate their own data, models, tools, and even code on the platform via Python. The platform also allows groups to dynamically engage with their stakeholders, even their clients. So using things such as dynamic dashboardings, even the way that Jacobi is deployed is unique and allows investment groups to deploy it downstream to their clients. Overall, the technology is provided in secure, safe, private cloud deployment. Each client's deployment is completely unique, and this offers them a significant advantage in that they can outsource quite a significant chunk of their technology and more economize where they do their own in-house builds. So thank you very much for hearing from us today, and come and speak to us at the back. We'll be exhibiting, so I'd love to speak to you over morning tea.
Wonderful. Great. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. I was going to say, if you pass over the clicker, that'd be great. Thank you very much. So last but no means least, waiting patiently for the final power pitch, ladies and gentlemen. She is the co-founder and the CEO, Samantha Duncan from NetPurpose. So we have 2 minutes on the clock. It's over to you.
Fabulous. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam, co-founder and CEO of NetPurpose. Super excited to be here today to talk to you about powering sustainable investing. We power sustainable investors. We power $14 billion in sustainable funds today, and we help you measure the sustainable impact of your investment portfolios in about 30 seconds flat. Today, one of the hardest things is to actually quantify the social and environmental impact of the companies you are backing and the portfolios that you are offering. You need to do that because all the next generation of investors are focused on sustainability, as we just heard. Regulation is coming into play, so even if you're not pursuing a sustainable strategy for the sustainability sense, you're going to need to report your principal adverse impacts. And that's quite a challenge across thousands of different data sources to pull that together. So we make that effortless. You can log on to our platform today, upload your set of ISINs, and generate a report in 30 seconds. And we'd love to help you do that. And we have 2 very amazing people right at the back that are going to be here all day to talk to you about how it works, the data ontology, all the standards that we map to, and how we get you going. So that's it. Wonderful. Please come say hi. Thanks for having us.
From NetPurpose. Thank you very much. Thank you. And with a very cool 40 seconds left on the clock as well. I'm loving that. Listen, I'm going to ask all of the presenters, please, to stay to the side of the stage, because we're going to take a quick photo during the break. But what I will now do, thank you very much, is just ask you to do a couple of things. One of them is catch your breath for a second. It has been an intense morning. Oh my goodness, have we covered an enormous amount, having heard keynotes, panels from around the world, also some of the drivers around technology, and also the shift of wealth, which is amazing, and of course heard from our incredible presenters with their power pitches. Do please spend the time networking with them. We'd just like you to do one thing, if you would, which is on the Glisser platform, we'd ask you to complete a word cloud or pay a contribution to a word cloud. In one word, tell us what you think is the key innovation priority for investment management. So if you could do that as you go out into coffee, and then we're going to be back here bang on the, so I'm just trying to think, so bang on past, actually. We will come back at past. We'll call you in about 5 minutes before then. Do take the time to meet all these amazing fintech firms. Thank you for your attention. A round of applause for everybody who's presented this morning, and we'll see you in half an hour. So I'm just going to get